tune with heaven is to know how to deal with our spouse and with our children. But there was another question hidden in me, and this is a very real question. As a young married man, do I have children? Am I right? You asked that question, didn't you?
As a young single man.
Sorry. Okay, I beg your pardon. But that's okay. Even better that you asked the question because you're thinking. I have kids who say, oh, what am I supposed to do now? That's our problem. So, to answer you, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you get married, you have kids. You all do it.
It's normal progression.
It's a normal progression. And this question is coming more and more. And I want to tell you something. When my kids were born, when we were going through the schooling thing, the homeschooling thing, and this is where I want to bring in another thing. The way you described it, you're thinking, young man, and I commend you for that. You bring a child into the world, it goes into the system, and the system does with your child what the system is designed to do. And believe you me, it's not designed for your child good. I don't care how educated you are and what you've been told. If you go and read the books, just go and get Walter Fight and read what's behind everything that's happening. The system is designed to gradually teach it can't think for itself, and it will keep taking control. So there you're 100% correct. So now it steps back. So I have this precious thing. Now I must put it into the school system at age 5. So that they can smoke with my kid before I can even start reasoning with my child. Now I must go to school. We couldn't do that, friends. That's why we chose to homeschool our children. Much again to our demise and mockery. But I will not apologize for it. For the exact same reason as you are sensing now. So the question is, do I have children? And my answer is simple. I counsel to people that I can't tell you that you shouldn't. But I'll say to you, it's now not a case of I'm going to get married and I'm automatically going to have children. We counsel now, and whether we're right or wrong, I don't know, but this is where we are at. You need to get on your knees and say, Lord, is this a time for me and my wife to have a child or no? Because it might for one be yes, for another it will be no. But we are told that we're entering into difficult times. I'm not saying that you must or that you mustn't, but you need to go and have it with God. I don't know if there's, and I mean, we don't want to create another whole issue around that, but I hope we've answered your question. But the fact that you're thinking and asking is brilliant.
Yes. So what Tammy's saying is it mustn't be driven by fear. Don't make your decisions based on fear. So Richard and I tend to, since we're on this topic, we tend to have a little bit of a disagreement here. Not really, but a little bit. He's more inclined to say, perhaps think about having kids, maybe don't have them. And I'm more inclined to say, maybe you should. And the reason I say that is because when you have kids, you grow up.
Yeah.
You grow up. And God uses that to grow you as a person and grow your character like nothing else.
Yep.
And so that's why we say, throw it in the air, you pray about it, and ask God to direct you, because it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. We had one more question that I want to just quickly address. It's not a big thing. It could probably go for another hour's discussion, but let's not. But the question was asked somewhere along the line, what if my husband, and it's usually the husband, sorry guys, but what if my husband is less committed to having family worship? What do we do? Because yes, usually the guys are off, they're working hard, they get home late, they've got a lot on their plates. How do we deal with that? Do you want to answer that as the husband?
No, you answered it, you raised it.
I'll tell you what I did. Because for a number of years, Richard didn't do worship with us.
Yep.
And I grew up in a home where we did do worship, and my dad took worship every day, twice a day.
I never had worship at home, by the way. Never. My dad did the Sabbath school lesson with me one Sabbath afternoon. He didn't know how either. So I never had that training. So to me, it was so awkward. I was so awkward with it.
So I tried the thing of, I showed him the quotes. You know, Ellen White says, that doesn't work. I tried the hinting and the nagging, whatever, that also doesn't work. So eventually I was like, okay, Lord, I will just do this. with a cheerful spirit. I'm not going to have an attitude towards him or anything, and I'm just going to pray. And that's what I did. I prayed, and
I was slowly convicted.
yeah.
And then I had to get over my fear, and I had to do it. And I did do it.
Do you have the microphone?
I know there's a lot of Christian influence on social media now, so it's probably a good thing not to be on social media, but for some of us who are, it can be quite confusing when you're using the platform to enrich your life in various areas, like following Christian creators or whatever the case may be, because sometimes they can really draw you closer to God, especially when you've gone astray or just need one simple reminder that brings you back. But that can also be a confusing time, because now what I've noticed is a lot of the bigger Christian influences, especially on the traditional homemaking side, say that you shouldn't fill the gap that your spouse leaves. Which is confusing, because I don't know which side of the fence to be on, because I agree with what you're saying, but what they're saying also makes sense. So they're saying, like, if it's your husband's job to take out the trash and you keep taking out the trash, he doesn't have a job to do. So if you keep leaving the trash to pile up, the trash will be piled up and he will see his job isn't done. But that's a difficult thing to do when you're dealing with spirituality and raising children.
Absolutely.
So where do you draw the line with that kind of thinking?
Between worship and the trash.
Worship and okay, so things that are not salvational.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I would say that you don't just necessarily keep quiet and only pray for him. You can sit down and say, you know what, I really, really want you to take over this. I feel it's important. You know, and you have a conversation, and not in the heat of the moment, but bring it up as an issue for you. If it doesn't go anywhere, if he doesn't respond to that, well then that's when you just, okay, Lord, now I'm just going to pray. But what does Ellen White say? She says the father must do it, but in the absence of the father, the mother must do it. But now, why is the father absent? Is it because he just doesn't care, doesn't see it as important, he's too busy, or he feels incompetent? What is his reason? We don't know. So don't necessarily let him off the hook completely, but at the same time, where there's a vacuum, you fill it.
Don't go with the finger wagging.
Yeah,
No.
I was just about to say
Go
that
with
I
an
have gone with the finger wagging.
No,
Okay.
And that's gotten me nowhere. So now I'm on the more silent side, and I've seen more progress being on the silent side and just letting him grow in his relationship with God, because I think that's where it stems from most of the time when fathers are not leading, is they don't understand the importance of it, because maybe their relationship with God is not where it should be. So how can you lead when the relationship with yourself is not?
Yes and no. It might not be 100% that, but it could be an inadequacy. And remember, if you were not raised like that, it's really hard. And remember something, I already made many changes as a young father in my capacity. I'm not justifying now that I didn't do worship, okay, to begin with, but I already made a lot of changes that my father didn't have done. So we did grow. So I would say to you, approach that in a situation with a question like, is there anything that I can do to help ease, or why is it that you are not comfortable doing it, rather than you're not doing it, you need to look at the quote, Ellen White says, etc., etc. I would rather approach it from that point of view and build it, and you quietly carry on yourself.
It's hard always being an example
But-
in situations like that.
But I would not stop doing worship like you would stop doing the trash. I don't think those two things equate. And we have the counsel. Ellen White says, if hubby's not doing it, moms do it. So there you have it.
Just to come back to the thing of the trash, and it might apply spiritually as well, is that, and tell me if I'm wrong, but as far as I'm concerned, in my family, with the guys in my family, they don't like hints. They don't like to say, oh wow, look at the rubbish bin, it's overflowing.
We'll just say, yeah, look at it.
It's better to say, honey, would you mind emptying the trash? Instead of saying, wow, look at this rubbish bin, it's just so overflowing, it's so filthy, whatever. No, he's going to be like, he doesn't like hints. Don't hint. So take it head on and say, you know what, I really would like for you to take over this job. I'm going to do it until you are comfortable, but I feel like it's not my place.
I've also heard that men prefer to come up with the idea themselves. So if their wife suggests it, even if it's a good idea, they would rather have come up with themselves by themselves. So they'd rather, I don't know, like in a project, if the wife comes up with a solution, it's not really a good solution. But if the husband had come up with the exact solution because he came up with the idea, that's the one solution. They go with. Yes.
Possible.
Can I say something on that? I find that's huisgenoot type of
counsel.
Psychology. Let me explain myself. Today on Instagram, you can get told how to win a woman's heart, how to get their attention. You can pick up all sorts of tips on there. They sound good, but they're fundamentally flawed. I would say to you that what you've just said there, I have a problem with that. To me, it depends on your relationship with your spouse. And this is now again, we're going back, Mfundis is walked out. Parenting begins with us. If we did our parenting seminar, we would have started at that point. Parenting begins with us. So in order to do a parenting seminar, we actually need to do a marriage seminar. Because now we're touching on one of the nitty-gritty issues. And yeah, we're talking about worship. What about discipline? Daddy wants to smack, mommy refuses to smack the kid. How about this? Daddy refuses to discipline the kids because I want my children and I to be friends. So mommy must do it. And all through the grown-up teenage years, mommy is the pig in the picture with the kids, and daddy's this hero. Until the kids get proper sense, through the teenagers become adults, and they hate and despise their father. Are we together here? So, some of these answers are not so simple.
Yeah.
So, I hear what you say. We need to approach our spouses with prayer, not with huisgenoot type of tips. I say that with respect, but also with the condemnation that huisgenoot type of stuff. Psychology is gumph, most of it. Psychology helps us largely understand the human mind and human functioning. But psychology solutions are flawed.
Yeah.
And many psychologists, we've spoken like this in audiences where we've actually really stuck our necks out, said, after you said it, are there any psychologists here? And they, with 3 or 4, stick their hands up and they say, you're 100% correct. So, I hear what you're saying. Don't treat the worship thing like the trash story. Don't finger wag. Don't command. Go in with an understanding spirit. Pick your moment.
I think I've also got another conviction out of that, and that is to silence every other voice, as in social media and outside influence, which is watered down truth. It may seem like truth, but it has some elements of untruth in it. And earlier on, when we were talking about, I don't know what the conversation was, that took so long, can't even remember the topic, but the thought came to mind about why, and as an Adventist for me, not even why we worship, but the why in the worship, like why we do certain things. And it took me a long time to get to the point where someone asked me, why do you go to church on Sabbath? And I couldn't answer that question, because all along I've said, because I'm an Adventist. Because I'm an Adventist is not an answer to the question, why do you go to church on Sabbath? They are irrelevant. It's why do you go to church on Sabbath? And I think when you're dealing with kids, to establish the why makes their spiritual walks so much more meaningful if they understand why they are doing it. Like the cause and effect that you say. Why did I tell you not to jump on the table? Because you'll fall off and hurt yourself. And it's the same in the spiritual walk. That's as far as I've realized in the 4 years that I've been doing that.
One thing though, when your children are small, correct me, Yalavi, am I right in assuming that Tammy's children are still small?
Yeah.
Sorry, you know, when you move on in your parenting, you can sometimes lose that finer focus. The why and the explanations come at a later stage.
Yeah.
Now, it is because mommy said so. That is so important. When we start bringing the why in and the reasonings, we make it heavy on the kid. The kid doesn't have, even though you think that the kid's reasoning, and we've heard some parents say, oh, but my child understands. No, they don't.
Does that give them leeway to be disobedient?
I think it makes it complicated. It makes it heavy. The child is not mentally or emotionally developed enough to actually do it because of this and that. It's because mommy said no, and if you do it, you're going to get a smack. Or you're going to get whatever consequence. Are you with me? That's simple. It's light. It's crisp. The kid gets over it and it moves on. When you load in heavy psychological results onto the kid, it can't deal with it.
So we call it the higher motivations and the lower motivations.
Yes.
Your higher motivations are things like, it's the right thing to do, it'll make Jesus happy, it'll make me happy, you know, it's a good thing to do. That's a motivation that sometimes us as adults don't even get to, but the lower motivation is cause and effect. I do this, that happens. And most of us learn the best by cause and effect.
Yes.
When I do this, that happens, I don't like that, so I won't do that anymore. It's simple. And that's all we have to do.
Example. So with my kids.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you? By the way, it's after 5. We're happy to carry on. So don't feel that if you need to leave that you've been rude. We understand. There's no official time, whatever. So we can carry on as long as there's a question. Okay.
So with my 2 girls, say now they're fighting and the one hits the other one and really hurts her, for example, and the other one, and okay, say Kalina hits Phoebe and Phoebe's really crying and hurt. And I say to Kalina, are you happy that you did that? Do you think Phoebe's happy that you did that? Is that too heavy for their age to understand why it's the wrong thing? That's the kind of reasoning I'm talking about. Because she can answer that question. She can say, I can see Phoebe isn't happy that I did that. And then often when I say that, she'll start crying. And I'll say, why are you crying? She said, because I hurt my sister.
Okay, so your girls are 5, right?
4. Yeah, they're turning 5 in May.
Okay, so the reasoning ability of every child is different. So if you find that you can actually reason with them like that, then that's fine. If you can say to them, you know, look, it's made her unhappy. It's not a nice thing. You don't feel good inside. She doesn't feel good inside. This is not a good thing to do. There is place for that. In other words, you don't go on and let's have a lecture about it now. It's a short, quick reasoning, and if you need to, you give a consequence so that the message gets through and it's over and done with. It's not a dragged-on big session.
So each child will be different and each situation will be different.
Correct.
Yes.
So you can begin with reasonings like that, but still continue with a consequence, a physical consequence, okay, to make sure that the message is getting there. And slowly you can wean off the consequence and start reasoning. But sometimes, and I don't know why, but there's this modern thing in the world out there where they're almost telling you that the kid knows best what's good for the kid. And that they naturally know what, and this philosophy is so scary. And it sounds so right, and there are people that are so into it. Very dangerous. That's why Jen and I, we like to stick to Spirit of Prophecy.
Yeah.
Spirit of Prophecy somehow keeps you on the straight and narrow when it comes to this stuff.
And then touching on that kind of thing, I think it's in the gentle parenting movement, or they talk a lot about natural consequences, which I'm sure is kind of what you're touching on. Is there a place in a way for natural consequences? Like you say to a child, get off the chair. So you're giving them a command and they don't listen, and eventually they fall off the chair and get badly hurt, so now they're crying. Do you, on top of that, discipline them, or do you allow that type of natural consequence? Okay.
I'm not trying to avoid the answer,
Yeah.
because there's never a fixed answer, Tammy. It's in the moment. You know your child. That's why I say every morning is Tammy saying, Lord, give me the wisdom with my 2 little twins, and then with my little son who's so different, or that the one twin is so different to other. I don't know. Our kids are so different. That you will learn how to parent in Christ in the moment. That sounds theoretical. I'm telling you, it works. That's the way that you do it.
So we found one of our kids was the kind who needed to fall off the chair. Because that's how he learned. Fall off the chair, okay, now I know, this is what happens when I do that. Another one you can say to, don't, because that's going to happen, and they'll be like, oh, okay, I better not do that. So, like Richard's saying, you need that connection with God and that moment-by-moment wisdom. What do I do here,
There's
Lord?
no real handbook.
No.
Only the Bible, but I mean, it's not in black and white.
It's got to do with
Yeah.
your connection with heaven
Exactly.
and God's direction.
And don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. The fact that you're asking the question, that you're aware of these differences, you are 90% on the right track. Now it's just to fine tune it. But what I do want to say to you is, be careful of the gentle parenting movement.
Yes.
Be careful of anything that's out there. I promise you, friends, what's out there is not designed for your good. It's not. It's there to trip you up. Some of it sounds brilliant, but it's fundamentally flawed.
So
And-
can I give an example of that? Sorry, can I butt in?
Yeah.
An example of that is the gentle parenting movement tells you when a child has a tantrum, they've just got big emotions, and you need to validate those emotions. Okay? Allow them to
Allow it,
feel, and just be there for them and support them through it. You know what Ellen White says? She says, about tantrums specifically, she says, do not allow your child to demonstrate this evil behavior. How's that for a contrast? Now, which one are you going to listen to? I take it back to what Spirit of Prophecy says. Do we believe Spirit of Prophecy or not? And we do what that's why I say, when it comes to anything, we take it back to Spirit of Prophecy, we compare it. Does it meet with that? If it meets with her, what she says, then we follow it. If it doesn't, we don't do it.
Do you know where the gentle parenting is actually running back to? They're actually telling you that the child is not inherently evil.
Children can't be bad.
That is directly contrary to what the word tells us. We are born with a sinful nature. We are bent to evil. I'm not saying that your little child that misbehaves in church is devil-possessed and evil. The child is making a wrong choice. But the gentle parenting people want to tell you, no, the child's not inherently evil. You are being intolerant and discriminatory, and I don't know what phobia
You're
you
not
are if
allowing
you do
them to
that.
be themselves.
Exactly.
At one point, I was trying to merge our Christian beliefs with the gentle parenting movement, and I think that's where the prompting of the Holy Spirit, even though it was the tiniest small voice, just that odd feeling that was
Yes.
off, where it
Good for you.
started giving the kids too many choices.
Yep.
Like they get to choose everything, and that's kind of what put me off. It was such a small thing, and even now saying it, it doesn't sound so relevant or important, too many choices. But just the fact that they got to choose this way or that way or this way or that way, to me that was off.
Do you know what the subtle effect of that movement is going to be? They're taking the power and the authority away from the parent, and they're telling you that the child, like the devil said, can do what it wants to do. There's no right and wrong. The child can do it. It's subtle, but it is so wrong. We need to be very careful of any of this modern stuff. There was a hand.
Do me have his
Do me,
hand up?
and then I think
Pindi.
Pindy's hand has been up for a long time.
And then
Okay. After these
comments, we're going to
three, then
end.
we're going to close it down unless
Okay.
there's a good motivation for another question.
Thank you. I think I'm going to jump other thoughts that I had at some stage.
Sorry, Mama, just bring
But
it closer.
it's not a problem. It's not a problem, really. I know our children don't like us talking about things that happened, so I fear the recording behind us. But I wanted to agree with you. It's very important.
Okay, sorry, Mama Baza, you know what? We can quite easily ask Unati to turn the camera off. And in fact, brother, I'm going to ask you, do you mind cutting our feed? Because if we want to have a discussion amongst us, that's perfectly acceptable. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Mama.
You know, I wanted to
Gana, Mama.